Hello, 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 and welcome to the Drag Race or RHAPup here on reality TV RHAPups. I'm your host, Liana Boraas, and today we're going to be talking about RuPaul's Drag Race All-Stars Season 9, Episode 5. We're going to be getting into everything from our property, makeover, comedy, challenge, whatever the hell this was. And thank you so much, everyone, for sticking with us, sticking with the pod last week. Myself and Beth couldn't be here, but Aman absolutely held down the fort and had a super fantastic guest with Gabby. I feel like the banter between them was super fun. Beth and I were joking that, like, why are we here? Should we even come back? But unfortunately for all of y'all, we are here and we're going to talk about this episode. So let me welcome in Beth Dixon. Beth, how are you?
I'm doing well. I think I should be saying thank you, Madame Curiosity, and thank you, Aman Paul.
Yes.
This is Augusta Wind. For those that didn't see the Brant Steele, it's one for the ages, and you should check it out for sure, that we had this past month, hosted and put together by Grace and Aman. And so thank you so much, Aman, for that. But I'm doing well, and I can't wait to get back in the saddle to talk about Drag Race. Because even though I missed only 1 week, it feels like I haven't been here for a long time.
I know. Well, it's actually, it's so funny, Beth. I have like a series of things I wanted to talk about, and that was one of them was the Drag Race Brant Steele. Our very own RuPaul Amanse held down everything, being our fantabulous host. Aman, how are you?
I'm great. That was a lot of fun. I really hope that we get to do that again sometime. And this time I want to like get in full geesh because I don't really have a lot of people that do drag in my life. And a lot of them the ones that I do know are mostly white queens. So like I was like afraid to ask them to paint my face because sometimes white people don't know how to paint black faces. So I was like, I don't know. Maybe I'll just, because like if I'm not going to look good, I'm just not going to do it at all. But next time I want to be fully prepared, get in full geesh, and not be like workroom Ru this time. But it was a lot of fun. I'm so glad that Grace had that idea. It was mainly her that came up with mostly everything. The only thing I really contributed was just like my presence and then a couple of the lip sync songs. So full shout out to Grace on that. She did such a fantastic job, and full shout out to you two for joining in. I knew you guys would be game, so I was super excited that you guys joined in. Hopefully we have you guys back for an All-Stars Brant Steele. And thank you guys for the kind words with the podcast with me and Gabby. I was super nervous to host. It's not like I haven't hosted podcasts before. I don't know. I just get super nervous when I'm like by myself. I'm like, oh my God, mom and dad aren't here. Like, what do I do?
It's also not your normal gig to host this one. Whereas, I know that like when I've attempted to fill Liana's shoes a couple of times, I'm like, oh yeah, she says hello, and then what else? And then I do this, and then also what do I have to prepare ahead of time? And then oh my gosh, there's also and you get in your head. So, but you couldn't notice. I didn't notice that at all. Like you couldn't tell that you were feeling like that. So kudos for sure. Yeah. Kudos to your mama for hosting.
For spilling. Yeah. Well, I mean, this is maybe like super inside baseball, but the thing is like, you don't have to be me, like you be you. At the same time, you still need to know and like be organized, because I feel the same way with like the B&B, because I just get to show up and be a hot mess. So when I have to actually be organized, I'm like, oh God, what do I do? So look, it happens. It happens to the best of us. But no, honestly, Aman, it was so fun. And for those of you to go back to the Brant Steele. So for those of you who may not know, Grace organized this really, really wonderful Brant Steele, essentially a simulator of a drag race season. And Beth and I both competed as our very own alter egos, and Aman was essentially our RuPaul host. So if you haven't had an opportunity to watch that and check that out, I highly, highly recommend it. There are some people that you've heard guest on our pod from like the Survivor world, for example, Jake, who competed, which were really fun. Bryce. It was just overall a really, really fun cast. So I recommend it if you have not heard that. The other thing that I wanted to talk about is, Aman, you and Gabby actually talked about this last week, which was Traitors. So I just briefly want to touch on this before we get into the episode proper. I promise we will talk about episode 5. Gabby had said, look, there's a rumor there might not be any more drag queens on Traitors, or at least not for this season. And we did skip ahead for anyone who doesn't want spoilers. We did get the reveal of Traitors, and one drag queen, but not just one drag queen, Bob, the motherfucking drag queen, is on this season. I audibly gasped when I saw the cast list. And Aman, you tweeted something to this effect that was like, I'm here for Bob and Bob only, which is really how I was feeling in that moment. I think I was just so shocked that Bob was going to be on this season.
I could not believe it either because, I mean, I follow, and I'm sure a few of our listeners also follow Bob and Monet and their Sibling Rivalry podcast. And we know that Monet is like an avid Survivor fan, has become like a big like social strategy. Like that is like such her thing. And so I thought if anyone was going to end up after Peppermint on one of these shows, it was probably going to be Monet. So the fact that it's Bob, I feel like Monet is probably like, damn it. And I love that because that just fuels their sibling rivalry even more. And I just cannot wait to see Bob in this kind of capacity because I don't really know, like, we don't really know, like, what Bob is like in this type of arena. Like, we know he's a pretty intelligent person and he can probably throw down with the rest of them. But there are some pretty big names a part of this season. People that we know and people that we love, people like Daniel Reyes and Tony Vlachos. Like, that's like, what does Bob the drag queen do in an arena like that? So I am so excited. Like, Traitors has really just been delivering like such a good cast, like 3 times in a row. So I'm super excited to see him play my favorite drag queen from the franchise. So this is so exciting. I cannot wait.
I so want a Boston Rob versus Bob, the drag queen.
Like fight.
Yeah. So bad. Like, you have no idea. Because here's the thing, and I tweeted this out as well. Like, I love Peppermint, and I love that Peppermint was on the last season. I don't like the treatment Peppermint got last season. But that said, Bob is not Peppermint.
No, he's not.
Bob is not going to sit there idly by if he feels like there's any sort of implicit bias being hurled. And, you know, I think that there's different pressures, obviously, that Peppermint was under versus Bob. But I think that Bob's the kind of person that is just like, let's talk it out right now. Let's have this moment. And I'm not going to let you like get away with something. And I think that kind of mentality is needed as representation on television, if it ever happens. But B, that kind of mentality is great for a game like Traitors. Let's leave it all on the table. What do you got for me? I'm gonna volley it right back at you. And I'm excited for that.
I honestly cannot decide. Do I want him to be a traitor or do I want him to be a faithful? Like I can't. I keep going back and forth because it will be so fun, obviously, watching him be a traitor because I like the way that he be pulling the wool over Monet's eyes half the time. Like I know that I just know that he's good for the job. But I also want to see Detective Bob as well. So I'm just like, whoo, which one is it? Like maybe we can get the best of both worlds. Maybe he gets recruited eventually after being a faithful for a couple of weeks. We'll see. But yeah, this is going to be such a good time. I cannot wait.
I'm just really praying and hoping that Boston Rob and Tony in particular are not traitors because I think it's like the obvious move. Yeah, and I think it would be more fun. Could you imagine like if you're going to go the Survivor route, you have Jeremy as a traitor versus those two? I think like that's an interesting dynamic. And I had this like I'm already dreaming up. I was like, you get Beth Dixon and like Jeremy and Bob as like 3 traitors, and it would just be like like the chaos. It would be amazing. I'm so excited.
And Brittany Haynes is going to be there. Oh my god,
Brittany Haynes is going to be gold.
Anyway, we'll put our Traitors fan fiction aside, although genuinely the cast is essentially fan fiction. I wanted to mention it because it is Drag Race adjacent and to me just sparks so much joy. But okay, almost 10 minutes into the podcast, let's talk about Drag Race All-Stars Season 9. Yes, we're going to talk about episode 5. So this week was the Maxi Challenge was called Property Queens, where essentially they were split up into teams of 2 and were tasked with dragging up real estate commercials. Aman, what was your overall impression of this challenge? It was kind of like a comedy challenge-ish thing.
Yeah. These challenges, to me, the ones where they're like filming on a set or like advertising something, are always kind of like hit or miss. Sometimes you get like the good ones, a la season 5, Delusion, Convince Yourself with Jinx Monsoon. And then sometimes you also get like the Factory ones. And then sometimes you get some duds that are just like, I think the one that comes to mind is like the one of the season 6, I believe, with like Ornacia and I always think I remember Ornacia's name before I remember Vivacious' name. It's so shady. But sometimes you get some of those duds, and I feel like this one was kind of middling. Like, I think definitely the highlight, not to bury the lead too much, is probably what we got to see from Plastique this week. I think that was probably like the thing that, you know, sort of set it over the top because, you know, we're not really used to seeing Plastique behave in this way. And she said at the top of the season, I have personality, guys. Like, I'm not just like this pretty face. Like, I can give it to you. I can give you some comedy. And she delivered that. So I felt like that was definitely a highlight for this. But overall, not exactly memorable.
Mm-hmm.
I tend to agree with you. I think that these challenges in theory are a lot of fun, and they're the ones that I think I would do the best on if I were on the show. I was like, oh yeah, I get to kind of create my own sketch with like a framework, a skeleton given to me ahead of time, and then I just get to work around it. That's the kind of stuff that I feel like, especially if I'm working with somebody, we can go back and forth. Oftentimes I feel like what we see in the workroom doesn't translate to what we see as the end product. And so in this case, I saw people who I thought were going to be way better than they were, and people who I thought were going to be a little worse than they were. And one team that did right about is what I thought they were going to be based on how they were. So I think it's always a little interesting. I'm not sure if this is the equivalent of like the like true crime documentary one that they had in All Stars 8, but this has this, yeah, I love that one where they all had kind of a character. I feel like this one is a little different because you're kind of choosing more of like, here's your theme, make it up as you go, rather than here's a character. So I tend to like them, but I agree with you, Aman, that I kind of feel like this one was like, oh, I'm entertained. And now I forgot about it. So that's kind of where I'm at this point.
Yeah, right. To be honest, this is a little bit forgettable for me. I think because last week was especially enjoyable, that this week felt a bit flat. I think also because it was like, okay, are they selling houses or is it comedy or is it? And I think that that's where the Chanel Nina West group got a little bit caught up because, you know, they nailed the realtor side of things, but maybe the jokes were lacking. So really, what was the objective? I think it was just a pure comedy challenge, but that got lost a little bit. The one thing that I genuinely remember is Plastique's face. Like, that's what I picture when I will think of this challenge, and essentially nothing else. So for me, it was a little bit just forgettable. It was fine though. It wasn't bad. There were amusing moments and there were some moments definitely where I laughed. But other than that, I mean, if I'm thinking of this season, this is definitely not the episode that immediately I think is going to pop into my mind, or at least not because of the challenge, maybe because of some of the drama and the Teletubbies of it all, which we'll talk about. But definitely the main challenge was just, for me, it was not giving the way I wanted it to.
I know we're literally on a recap podcast, but I literally, as I watched the Teletubbies portion, I thought, do we have to talk about this?
Okay, let's just talk about it. Yeah. What a weird ass thing that was on our television screen. So the mini challenge was essentially a dance challenge, but with the Teletubbies. So we all are about the same age. So we all kind of grew up where Teletubbies, when we were children, Teletubbies was on. I don't know if I remember watching it, but like I remember the Teletubbies existing. And they've also had a resurgence on social media, or at least I see them on TikTok all the time. So I don't know. Maybe that's just more.
I want to see the Teletubbies at Pride wearing like mesh tank tops and like banana hammocks and shit.
So okay, I love the Teletubbies growing up. My mom thought it was the weirdest show and would not allow us to watch it in her household. And I remember begging my grandma, because me and my sister would spend weekends with our grandma, and she would secretly buy us the VHSs. Thank you, grandma, so much for that. So we would be watching it behind our mom's back. But my mom thought it was like the weirdest show. She thought that it was like sending weird subliminal messages to kids, and she just thought it was just super, super weird. And looking back on it, I can kind of see where she's coming from. Like, the show is very weird. It is a very weird show. Like, what do we have our children watching? But that being said, I loved it. And I don't know, I sort of had like a visceral reaction watching this. Like, I know that the mini challenge was mostly very tame, very PG, right? But I don't know, like, when I'm thinking about the drag queens of Drag Race and all of the effery that they get into, and then you juxtapose it with something that is supposed to be as sweet and as innocent as Teletubbies. I mean, I don't know. Maybe this is like a little conservative bone kicking. I'm like, no, keep the Teletubbies off of Drag Race. Like, what is going on? I don't know.
I feel like if you're going to have the Teletubbies there, you should make the mini challenge, create a very quick drag time story time thing. Like,
yeah, maybe something
something that like there's a lot of commentary right now about should drag queens be in libraries reading to children, like, right, there's all that kind of stuff. If that's the message we want to go for with having literal icons of children's television on the show, then I feel like, yeah, I mean, the dancing, they didn't do anything like too obscene or weird, or except for maybe Banshee getting into like, hold my legs.
Yeah, the wheelbarrow thing, and then like the dancing behind Tinky Winky. I think that was Chanel. That's when I was like, "Ooh, it's getting a little."
Could you imagine if they've been like, Poe, bend over?
Yeah, I'm like, no, they're gonna come. This show is going to get canceled. I'm just so shocked that it was cleared. Like, again, like it was very innocent. Like nothing really happened. So I don't want people to think that, I'm, condemning it or whatever. But I do think that sometimes there is like there's a very fine line, and you just got to make sure that you are treading it very carefully. So I was just my face was like, my jaw was on the floor the entire time because I could just not believe that it was even cleared to happen. I was just like, wow, this is crazy.
I can't wait for next season when they bring, like Steve from Blue's Clues on and like someone dressed up as Blue, or like they have the animated dog so the queens don't even see it and they just fill in the queen, like Blue and Magenta having a great time dancing around or whatever. And they're like, Magenta's my bitch, and like saying shit like that. Like, come on. Like, I think it would be so funny.
It was giving so much of the, sorry, Liana, it just reminded me so much of like the whole controversy with Katy Perry when she was on Sesame Street and she had her BB tutus just like out in front of the Elmo, and everyone was like, just like, what is going on? That's what I was thinking.
Yeah, I don't know. For me, I was not bothered by it. I just thought it was so weird but fun. But I think also, like, for me, I don't know who owns. So I was trying to do some quick Googling about like who owns Teletubbies, because essentially the run is over, right? So these are more icons from our childhood that then now have taken on almost like they're adults now. So like it seemed okay. I was like, it's okay, they're consenting adults. But I think also it's really funny given, I don't know if either of you remember this, but like the controversy with Tinky Winky, where they were like because Tinky Winky had a handbag, like God forbid a handbag, and so there was this whole thing that was like, oh my God, Tinky Winky's gay, and like Jerry Falwell somehow got involved with like Tinky Winky being this gay icon.
I remember that.
And the creator was Bob the drag queen's inspiration for Purse Burst.
Yeah, exactly.
Bring it full circle.
There was also a controversy with one of the toys. I think it was Poe that had like a doll, and if you pressed her tummy, we don't know, like, because they speak gibberish, right? They don't really speak English, and it could have been innocent, but it sounded a lot like when you pressed her tummy, she'd be like, fuck it, fuck it, fuck it, fuck it, fuck it. And so they had to pull all of the Poe dolls off the rack and discontinue them.
You know what? I'm turning this back around. I think that they should come back every year now. I don't even want to talk about. Holy crap. Did you just turn water into wine, Liana?
Okay, I was drinking water and then I had a soda, but it was getting warm. So I poured it in the leftover ice. So now it turned red, but I understand how that looks.
I was like, holy shit. My theory's true. Liana is Jesus.
I am Jesus. I guess I should tell you all now. But yeah, look, it was definitely like I needed more drugs, I think, but at the same time, it was very, very weird and just so bizarre, and also such a contrast to like last week and so random. I think I've just learned to like
random.
Exactly. So random. I think I've just learned to really try to just embrace these super bizarre moments and just try to enjoy them for what they are.
I will say, watching Nina West react to when they came out was like, I was like, I think she's a little too into this. Like she was like, yeah. And I was like, oh, we know you're like the story time queen, but in like, let's calm that down a little bit. You're not, no.
I wonder if George is even old enough to even know what they were, because they weren't on TV for that long, right? It was only like maybe about a couple years.
Were they British? Like a British?
Yes, it was a UK. Yeah, so it was a UK show, and the original run was not that long. It was only like a couple seasons, if that, I think.
Yeah, and it ran from. Let me see here on this Wikipedia page.
Oh wait. Okay. Yeah. So it aired from 1997 to 2001.
Yeah, so just
I never watched them. I was aware of them, and that makes sense now.
Yeah.
Because in '97, I was like
a little too old.
I was like 9.
Yeah.
Oh
So-
yeah, I loved it. I loved that damn show. My mom
Well, this
hated
is
it.
what's so funny, right? Is that I do think that I was trying to think like what would be like the equivalent of, and I think for me it'd be like if Barney came on. Like I watched Barney growing up, like that was my jam.
Oh my
Barney
god,
was also my jam.
Yeah, there's a video of me as a child. As soon as that sound that plays at the beginning of the Barney episode, it's like I'm immediately like cracked to the TV. It's
that. I was like that with Barney, Sesame Street, and then like specifically Cookie Monster. I did like this dance that was not a dance. It's just me swaying back and forth with my hands up this way. But also, do you guys remember they had those Disney sing-along VHSs? Like it would just be all like random songs or whatever. I was really into Hi Ho, apparently, which Hi Ho. Off to work she goes.
I think the other thing about that, just one more note on the Teletubbies, is of course our lovely Tammy Brown. Come on, Teletubby. Teleport us to Mars. So
I don't know why I didn't expect I don't know why I didn't expect it. As soon as they said, I was like, they said the line. But then I was like, well, duh, it's Drag Race. That's where it happens.
They definitely should have had her come in and like co-host the mini challenge. That would have been iconic.
Can you imagine? I don't know if Tammy's on the good graces of WoW right now. She's pretty she's very vocally against RuPaul, against a lot. So I don't know.
Excuse your mouth.
Excuse your mouth.
Well, Gottmik wins, apparently, the Soul Train dance off with the Teletubbies, but it doesn't really matter because for the Maxi Challenge this week, it's actually Angeria, because she's been blocked so many times, that gets the opportunity to pair up the partners and pair up, you know, her competition. And essentially she doesn't really do anybody dirty. She keeps it clean. Chanel and Nina, she pairs together, Plastique and Roxy, Gottmik and Georges, and then Angeria and Vanjie. And then they each get to pick which sort of region they want to market to. So we have Salem, Massachusetts, Tumbleweed, Texas, Frosty Tips, Alaska, and Gator Glades, Florida. So let's go through and talk about everybody. We're going to kick things off with Chanel and Nina, who did Salem, Massachusetts. Beth, what was your impression of their performance commercial thing?
So, okay. I think if they had a few more hours, it would have been perfection. But I think their problem was we're seeing a recurring thing with Chanel worrying more about the look of things. She worried more about the look with Liberace in comparison to Nina. And Nina wants to embody the script and the character. And I think in this particular kind of episode, you want to go the Nina route more than the Chanel route. And also, I'm sorry, it's not that hard to put together some kind of witch look. But they were vampires? Question mark?
Yeah.
I don't know. It just felt like there's a lot of things that were like missing. And I think it would have been so funny. I just sat there, and as soon as they said someone said something about Salem, Massachusetts, I was like, that's what I would take, because you could do so much with it. And the way I would have made my partner and myself be the Boulay brothers is not even funny. It's like, we're the Boulay brothers, and just like say that you're the Boulay brothers, and like selling real estate.
They could do that. Do you think they could do that?
Why couldn't they? You know, like I mean, maybe not.
Some IP thing. I don't know.
Okay, then like we're the Goulet brothers, and then we with Robert Goulet, like little mustaches, but Boulay outfits. That would be so funny. It's stupid.
Yeah.
I'm sure they would appreciate the homage too. I mean, it's free publicity on their end, so I don't think it's a bad idea at all.
I think a lot of these queens end up working more with the Boulay brothers than they ever do with RuPaul in the future, you know? So, but I just thought like it would be so funny if they had like really tried to go in on, like they had a lot of references. I wouldn't even say jokes. They had like references, and then just threw like the word macabre in there every once in a while, or like scary or whatever. And I just was like, okay. But it was solid. It wasn't bad. It just wasn't like, I didn't laugh. I thought I was going to laugh more based off of how they were in the workroom.
Yeah, I agree. I thought definitely they went for all of the, you know, royalty references they could squeeze in there and try to make it a little spooky, ooky. But it just Yeah, it was fine. It was simply serviceable. I mean, I chuckled a couple of times, but I think that they focused too much on making everything so wordy, and there wasn't enough like characterization and not enough like comedy within those words. So definitely a very safe performance for sure.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I think that the only joke I really thought was funny was she already done has herses in his and hers herses. That wordplay really made me laugh. But I think the other jokes just were kind of they just didn't really do it for me. I think maybe if they had more time, I don't know, to write better jokes, maybe it would have been better, because I think that the concept was all right. But my overall notes were like, it's cute, but really not that funny.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I will say both of them, I don't think either one of them stole focus from the other, whereas I felt like the other teams, one was stronger than the other very clearly throughout the entirety of it. And I felt like they gave each other space, and they both have like a good sense of presence. Chanel's clearly a host. And so she had that host kind of like mentality when she was talking. And Nina had that like comedy queen energy. So I think that they were the best at that, and they were the best at real estate
jargon.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think I felt like Nina maybe got more jokes. That's the only thing that felt maybe a little bit more one-sided, but overall it was very balanced. And yeah, in terms of, they were both the presence, right? They were definitely both there. So that was, yeah, they were both there. They were both in the commercial. Wow, what an insight. They're both there. Okay, let's talk about Plastique and Roxy, because Aman, this is the one that, especially Plastique's face, just really stuck with me, especially when she popped up behind Roxy in that one, like, or not moment. That as soon as I started laughing at that, I was like, oh, I think they're gonna win this challenge.
Yeah, I think what they really achieved nicely in their commercial was just the timing. I mean, we know that comedy is very dependent on your timing. You have to have good timing, or it just throws everything off. I thought the pacing was great. I thought that the script was very, very simple, but effective. I thought the looks were crazy. And I mean, as much as I do appreciate that Plastique is giving us a little bit more of her personality, and shows that she is a little bit more versatile than just being a look queen. I'm kind of like, the critique about her, like, oh, I think it was Michelle. It was either Michelle or RuPaul that was like, oh, I'm so glad that you showed us that you can, be ugly. I'm like, I mean, is that really a compliment? Like, of course they can all be ugly if they really want to, but they're not supposed to be, because they're drag queens. So I just kind of like, whatever. Just because she's known for being pretty doesn't mean that she doesn't know how to not be pretty. She doesn't wear makeup every day. But other than that, yeah, I thought that her performance was really, really strong. I thought they had great chemistry. I love the concept. And out of the sort of like Southern type of performance, yeah, I mean, Vanjie was very afraid, or Angie, both of them really were afraid of, being compared. And yeah, they did end up looking a little weaker, only because this one just felt so much more cohesive.
When I heard the Texas, like Tumbleweed Texas plays, I didn't go to country bumpkin. I went to like Old West, and like thinking about like saloons and like that kind of thing. And I was kind of confused at first why they decided to go like Southern rural country, especially when Florida is so that clearly. But then we had that whole conversation between Roxy, who's from Florida, saying, well, that's not what Florida's like. And I wanted to be like, Roxy, honey, everybody in the United States thinks of that as Florida. I want you to know that when we hear Everglades, we hear Deliverance, even though I think that's Alabama or Mississippi. They're like, I'm sorry. That is absolutely, yes, I know you're from Orlando, and that's a little bit more developed and such, but we're not thinking just Disneyland world. I mean, when we're thinking of Florida.
Well, that's the thing. It was specifically like Gator Glades, Florida. So you think of the Panhandle, right? Which is a very, very different vibe, of course, from Orlando or Miami or something like that. That's going to feel extremely different. That's close. Because it's closer to Alabama. It's closer to Mississippi up there. So yeah, I didn't think that what Angeria and Vanjie were going for was, completely like,
I thought what they were doing was completely on point. And granted, the way that they edited this show, it shows the way that we're intended to believe is that Vanjie and Angie came up with the idea for blacking out teeth and such first, and then Roxy and Plastique did the same thing. I mean, I think they probably came up with it at the same time in just 2 different stations or whatever. But I don't know. Like, I think it really worked out for Plastique and Roxy. Don't get me wrong. I do agree that they were the strongest group. They had the most jokes. They were able to actually bring in a lot of real estate into this as well. I thought it was funny. Plastique stole the show for me. Everything that Roxy did was a really good straight man. And when you think about like All Stars 2, when she came back and she had to play more of the straight man to Fifi O'Hara for the Showgirls Squirrel Friends or whatever one, Roxy didn't do well with that. And she did much better job now of propping up somebody who needed like a comedy win to really showcase some versatility. I think that they did a great job. And I thought I loved the Tina Turner wig that they keep talking about. It was so funny. I thought that they did a great job. I think it's kind of on the producers for not choosing something like, if you're going to go ranch, choose Wyoming or something like that, if that's what the intention was. Otherwise, 2 things are a little too similar. And I think that just by making something a little different, or if they had done something like being weird in Portland or something like that, like that would have been so interesting and different from everybody.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. I was thinking somewhere in the Northwest,
Pacific Northwest,
Pacific Northwest, like Washington or Oregon or something like that. I think would have been, or even like a Southern California kind of thing. Like I think that there's a lot that you could do with that as well. So yeah, something that was maybe would have pushed the stereotype in a different direction, because I do think that this sort of country bumpkin thing is it's an easy laugh. Not that it's not hard and not that you can't screw it up, but at least when it comes to creating a concept and a character, you know what you're going to do. You're going to have a bad wig. You're going to have bad makeup. You're going to maybe block out a tooth. You're going to be pregnant. You're going to be drinking and smoking while pregnant. There's just all of those like immediate stereotypes that I think come to mind. And
you're just describing my high school experience. What up?
Aw. So I think that makes for an obvious choice. So I understand why both Plastique and Roxy and Angie Vanjie all sort of chose to go that angle, because I think even though there's a lot to do with Salem, Massachusetts, for example, I think you have to be more cerebral with the comedy. It's not, you can't be as like dumb stupid with that.
Yeah. There's not as like, there's not, I mean, there is a Boston accent, but like, it's not Boston as much as it's Salem. So it's like, so it's not as like instantly recognizable as I think some of the other ones could be. Maybe if they had even like done like a New York City realty, like, trying to sell these shoebox apartments. Like, I feel like you could definitely have gotten like a lot of comedy out of that. Or if Angie and Vanjie were so concerned about being similar, they could make themselves from Miami trying to sell crap down in the Everglades. Like, make yourselves like these really, I'm from Miami. I'm like above all of this, but I'm going to try to sell you this shit. You know what I mean? So just to give it like a little bit more layers, but it is what it is.
I do think though that people in Salem are very close to Boston geographically. And there are quite a few people who have the accent up there as well, because it's more North Shore. It's not North Shore, but it's on the North Shore area. I think it would have been so funny if they had tried to do like, Boston accents the entire time. It would have been so funny while they're also being spooky witches. Like that in and itself, if they had the same exact script, but somehow pulled off a Boston accent, they win.
Oh my God, like rooting for the Patriots with their Dunkin' Donuts, but like also ghosts, like spooky ghosts trying to sell houses.
And one of them dressed up like a Revolutionary War hero that's like been dead for this entire time, and but holding dunks.
Well, that's the thing, is that it felt like they didn't have enough time. Like the final product felt like you didn't have enough time to really develop something. And I think it's even with Nina and Chanel, is that Nina's like, I have to write jokes. Like, we don't have time. Like, I need to write jokes. And I think that rushingness obviously is going to make for more of a subpar product. But I do want to go back also, Beth, to your comment that you made about Roxy, because I think playing the straight man is something that is frequently underrated and that is absolutely necessary. So I was happy that she got her flowers, because you have to have both for the balance of the comedy to work out well. So shout out to the two of them. I think they absolutely nailed it. Now we need to talk about a group that maybe didn't nail it. And to be honest, we had joked about the negative or lack of negative critiques. I'm happy that Gottmik and Georges weren't really even in the consideration for the winners. Like, they didn't even try to play us that, oh, and, you know, Gottmik and Georges, blah, blah, blah. I mean, it just didn't really come together.
I can't even remember most of what they were even saying. It just, yeah, I just the looks were a little weird for it as well. I don't know. I mean, to be honest though, I'm not even really sure what I would do.
Yeah.
I mean, could they have phoned a friend? Could they have like hit up Denali or something to ask about some references? Because yeah, it was. I think they definitely had the highest mountain to climb in terms of, you know, geographically.
It's a Denali joke.
Yeah. So yeah, definitely not their strongest time on the show for sure.
I was so distracted by Georges's like hot top, like before she changes into the real, of how far away the breast like coverings were for the top. I was like, where are your boobs in this situation? Because they're basically underneath your armpit. What's happening? I was like, are you tucking for a drag king role? Because like, go off slay, but what is happening? I felt like they were so close to so many good jokes and just didn't go over the, you know, the mountain ridge, so to say, to get them.
Why are they flip fuckers? I don't understand.
I don't get that. Like, what are we doing here? That just became like, we don't have anything else, so we're just gonna be horny on Maine and like whatever. Like, I get it. That's a cheap laugh on Drag Race half the time. But if you're flip fuckers and all that kind of stuff, you literally had ice fishing, which has a hole. Make a glory hole joke. Like they're so close to so many of those different things. Like
Eskimo sisters, you know?
Eskimo sisters. Oh my God. Like doing stuff like that. Although I'm like not sure like what else they really could do. I agree. Like they were like, they had a bag of ice at one point. I laughed at how bad the joke was that they had ice, not because it was a good joke. I was like, that's so bad. I'm entertained. But I don't know. I felt like it just was weird. Like I also, if I were them, this is me again, just being millennial Beth. I'm sitting here going like, oh my God, well, they had like the Twilight people who were up in like the vampires that lived up in like Alaska and they were like supermodels. Like there was that idea that I was like, you guys could be like the supermodels of Alaska trying to sell igloos. And that whole idea that like, oh, you could sell ice to, you know, an Eskimo or something like that, an Inuit person or whatever. Like, I think it would be really funny if like they basically were like what you guys were saying about being from Miami to sell to the Everglades. It's like, we're really successful in Beverly Hills and for undisclosed reasons, now we have to sell things here in Alaska. And it's like, here's your ice palace. And it's just a little igloo or something like that. Like, I think that there's things they could have done, but I do agree. I think it's really difficult to.
It was hard, yeah.
Do that particular one. But they were like all in on it. They wanted that one. It's not like they were stuck with it. So I was like, girl.
Yeah. That was definitely interesting when they said, "Oh yeah, we really want this one." It's like, but why? Why? What is there to do with it? I mean, I don't even think I wrote down a single joke. Like, what were the where were the jokes?
Where were they?
bits, frosty tips. That was, I think, a thing. I don't know.
I think the flip fuckers was the joke.
That was the joke. The joke. The one joke. Yeah, it didn't.
I think the funniest part about that was Carson Kressley describing it to the real estate woman.
Yeah, to Tracy Tudor. Yeah, having to explain it. Yeah,
and how do we know Tracy Tudor again? Is she on a show?
She was on one of those like $1 million listing things or something like that. And
okay.
Yeah, she does $1 million listing. You're right, Beth. I was not familiar with her.
Which, let's be honest, in California, $1 million listing, that's not an expensive home.
I know.
Like, here's the shack over here.
That's a 2-bedroom. Okay.
let's talk about our last group, which is Angeria and Vanjie. So we talked a little bit about them as from Gator Glades, Florida. I will say, I think Angeria, for me, really crushed this. I could not take my eyes off her, Beth. I thought she was, even just the way that she moved, like there was like a little dance thing that they did towards the end, and I couldn't take my eyes off of her.
Angeria to me is the epitome of somebody who just has energy that is captivating. In the way that like you want to watch George's lip sync, you want to watch Angeria do just about anything because there's going to be a warmth and humor that goes along with it. Mm-hmm. And you're talking about her. She already has a Southern country accent. It fit her perfectly to kind of just be herself a little bit. Whereas, you know, Vanjie, she can do anything. I'm happy that Michelle called out the voice that she does when she's like, you know, anytime you have to put on a character, you do like a voice. She's like, what are you talking about? It's my voice. She's like, no, it's not. Like you're like, hey, 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 like turn into Fat Albert or something like that.
I know it's
Vanjie's
like
version of it.
She's gargling with chainsaws every single time.
But I thought they did a great job. I do think, unfortunately, a lot of the jokes that I saw them going together with like fell flat when they actually performed them. But in the workroom, I thought that they were going to be much, much funnier than they were. Mm. And I think having Plastique and Roxy do the same thing got in their heads, whereas Plastique and Roxy are just like, whatever, we're going to do our own thing. And if we get compared, we get compared, but we're going to be great at it anyway. I feel like Angeria was in her feelings, which I'm sure we're going to discuss about being cut. She also had to assign the team. So I think there's a lot that she's thinking about. And I felt like Vanjie is somebody that, even though you wouldn't assume it from her like tougher exterior at times, like I do think that she's somebody who like takes things very personally and literally. And so if she sees somebody else doing that, I think that that's something that could make her feel like, oh, I need to be better. And then she puts the pressure on herself and it doesn't end up being there. I felt like the energy was just a little off from them, from what we saw in the workroom when they were first planning it. But I agree with you. And I actually felt like if they didn't do Roxy and Plastique as the winners, which I do think was well-deserved, not just as a team, but I do think Roxy as a straight man deserved the praise to also be in the top two. I could have seen Angeria and Plastique as the top two.
Mm. Oh, like if they'd split it up and given the opposite teams. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, I enjoyed it too. I thought that I don't know if this was intentional, but I think my funniest part about it was like when they were pouring it out for a cousin that I guess got eaten by an alligator. So they were pouring out their beer in memory, and then like Vanjie, I guess, had less in her glass, so she had poured all of hers out, and I think Angeria went to go pour some more in her glass, but then Vanjie just sipped the rest of it and then poured nothing out again and just like left it hanging. I don't think that was planned, but they kept it in, and I'm glad that they did.
Yes, Aman, I'm so happy you brought that up because that was one of the other moments. It was like left me hanging. It's fine. Like just the way that he said it, I just really, really, really made me laugh. It was very amusing, and it was just kind of like watching two friends just kind of joke around and like goof and laugh and that made it enjoyable to watch.
For sure.
I enjoyed the Everglades. I went there a few years back during spring break when I went to Florida for Disney and everything else, and then we took one day to go down there, and it's actually really, really cool down there. I got to see some gators. We got on the airboat and everything. Mm-hmm. It's really, really cool. I like it.
I always think about like this is probably horrible of me to say, but I'm gonna say it anyway. Why not? I always think about like the karma that the Spanish colonizers had of being like, we're going to take over the Everglades and then all die by like snakes and gators and mosquitoes and like all that shit down there. And be like, yeah, that's what you get for coming in here and trying to take over land you don't get. To me, I'm always like, karma. But
no, it ain't no joke down there. Those gators.
That's right. Karma's a bitch. Should have known better. All right.
Come on, JoJo.
Okay, let's get into the day to night reveal looks. We're going to very quickly go through the different looks that we see. We see a lot of different interpretations of literal day to night reveals as well as just reveals. First, Nina West is the one to walk the runway. She goes from nun to, what did she say she was? Showgirl to God as a drag queen as the last reveal. you know, there's been a lot of discourse about this about this look. I don't know how much we need to add to this. But,
yeah, I just feel like Nina, the taste level just isn't there for her. Everything just always seems. I'm just kind of confused because I feel like on season 11, I mean, her first runway look on season 11 was bad, and she swore, she was like, "I'm sorry, RuPaul, for letting you down. I swear I will, you know, I'll make it up to you. I'll do better." And I liked a lot of her looks in season 11. And she comes into season 11 being known as the girl that Sia stole the idea from, of the floating dress, where bits of the dress are actually people and they float away and everything. So you think that she's going to come in and have all of these just audacious looks, but I mean, well, I guess they are, because there's a lot of audacity to wear this. I don't know. I feel like I just feel like they're just so disjointed. And like, yes, we knew that there was going to be a reveal because it's day and night, but like, can you make the nun look at least look like you're trying to hide something? It was so lumpy and frumpy and just, and I don't know.
Reveal.
It's just, I don't think that this this look was habit forming. Yeah. That's the quality of jokes I would give. So maybe I shouldn't talk much about.
Yeah, I'm gonna boot the look and the joke. No, I'm just.
I do think so. I'm going to be somewhat of a Nina defender right now because I agree that for the purposes of Drag Race, where's the taste? But also, why does drag have to be super polished all the time? Where I'm concerned is I don't get how the last portion fits in with the day to night portion. Like, this has nothing to do with everything else, like the prompt. We know she's not going to be a look queen. When she does pull it out, it's going to be amazing. Just like when Georges makes us laugh in an acting challenge, it's going to make us like feel good, like the way that Plastique did this time. I do think that it should, I know that the runway is a big part of the show, but we have also kind of gotten to a place where we expect models, and these are drag queens who are used to performing in bars and stuff. And her thing is theater. So hers is always going to be this old school campy vibe, which admittedly there are ways to be more polished about it. But I just have come to the place where I go, I'm just going to watch what she puts together and say, good job, girl, and then move on to the next person who I'm more excited to see on the runway. Just like when I see somebody in a challenge, I'm going to look forward to seeing Nina in a challenge that's acting and talking. And like next week when there's a roast, I'm excited to see what she pulls out for a roast as the miscongeniality of her season. Like, I think that there's going to be things that are going to be really funny to watch her on. I just know that I'm not necessarily going to be entertained on the runway. And so I don't want to say like, oh, we shouldn't expect anything, but we should. But I also just want to say like, you know, RuPaul's Drag Race done fucked up drag sometimes. And this is one of those things that I know it's all stars. I know that kind of thing, but I just want to put that out.
Yeah. I mean, that's very fair. I mean, she's always been true to old school drag in that way. And I think that that's fine. I just think for this look in particular, I was just like, I don't get it. Like, it didn't really seem cohesive to me. The color scheme from the showgirl into the God as a drag queen look, I don't know, just not my favorite from her, but I take your point. I do.
No, for sure. And again, I'm not coming at you or anything, Aman, but I also have to agree with you with the girl. Why were you clearly having the big bolstered skirt on the hips underneath the nun outfit was just so ridiculous. And I did really, and I think that's why I thought it was actually kind of funny. It was like, I was like, it's so clearly a reveal and we know it's going to be a reveal because of the whole thing. Like, I think that she literally was like, I'm going to be campy with it. I'm going to show you guys, this is ridiculous. Here we go. Fair. But
I mean, the thing is I actually, so the middle look, apart from the shoes and maybe the colors of the feathers, I actually like the silhouette of the middle look. I like it. I agree with Aman that cut out the middle look. Just go from the nun to God as a drag queen. Like, what is this weird showgirl interim piece that makes no sense with your story? Like, I don't know. For me, I think that was like the biggest frustration. Or just be the nun to the showgirl and then don't do the God as a drag queen. Like, it was weird to have the three pieces. So even if you're trying to say like, oh, it's about storytelling, I still don't get the story either. So I think that was just like another layer of frustration, because I think the giant ass nun habit thing is hilarious. It reminds me of one of those like foam cowboy hats, like the really big ones. Like that makes me laugh, but then it doesn't. Like there's just something with Nina. I want to love Nina so much, but it always feels like there's just something that's missing. Just one little thing that's missing. I think her Liberace aside, which I do think she nailed, but then also you had Chanel do it, which I liked as well. So then it almost, I don't know. I'm struggling a bit with Nina because I really, really want to just completely fall in love with her. And there's just so many little things, baby little things, that for some reason just hold me back from being like completely excited about her.
I agree with that. I mean, she shares my birthday, so I really want to root for her. But I'm also at the same time, I'm like, girl, you got to do August 10th proud here. Come on. Like the other person who shares our birthday is Manila Luzon. You're not her. So come on.
It's tough comp. Chanel is next with another day to nighttime look. This felt like a very literal interpretation, but I thought it was really stunning. And I love the way that she can make this silhouette on the first dress. It looks like a genuine reveal that I would be excited about. So I thought this was great from her.
I like this too. I love when we get to really see like the technicality that goes into some of these reveals. Because I with that first silhouette, I was like, what, how is this going to happen? Like, what are you going to do? And when she like pulls those strings and it just unfurls like that, I'm like, oh yes, I love that. So I thought that I like the concept. She's like, a business film executive, and now she's I forget what the second look was supposed to be.
Going
she,
to a gala or something.
Yeah. So I thought that was really, really cool and stunning. I loved it.
Nobody can come for her paint. Like she just paints her face. Like she really is old school drag in this way. Like it's big, bold, proud, glam. It's everything. I love that red wig on her. And I with the full gown, I'm not a big fan of the red in it. I don't know why. It just throws me off, but I also don't hate it. I don't know, but I have to give her the props because she's the person that I felt like had the best, most practiced reveal. Like it felt just like, and here's like, shoom, and then it's done. Like there are other people who were like, and now I got to pull it down and readjust this and hook a bra on the back and twirl around 6 times and that kind of thing. And don't get me wrong, some of those can be really cool, but I love the just simplicity of boom, drop, down. There we go. Yeah. And she clearly had practiced that, and I thought she looked great.
Next up is Plastique, who again, not a literal like, oh, maybe this is a literal day to night interpretation. I don't know, but I think both looks are absolutely stunning and could be on their own fantastic looks. To have them together just felt like a double bonus.
Yeah, okay. So I'm sort of, I don't know. I think that both looks are great. Obviously beautiful. I love the fact that she's a geisha first, but then she says she's going into a samurai, which I think is like an absolutely like interesting story to tell because, samurai are not women in Japan. They're always men. So the thought of having this geisha that is, secretly a samurai is kind of giving, but I don't know if the second look is giving me enough samurai. It's giving me more like anime superhero, and I am missing more of the I used to know the names of both of the swords that they would carry. I'm missing more of like that samurai, a katana, and I forget what the short one is called. But yeah, I kind of wanted more samurai in the second look and little less anime, but the look is obviously just gorgeous and she looks gorgeous in it. So I'm not going to knock it too much. That's just the Japanese nerd in me nerding out.
No, but I actually am agreeing with you a little bit because I almost felt like instead of day to night, this felt like past to present in a way, the way that she was presenting it. Like here's something traditional and then here's something futuristic with a twist on something from the past. Like that is something that I felt like made a little bit more sense, which I also think, hey, producers, throw that in for a season, do a transformation of past to present or something like that. And like in a concept, because I think that'd be cool. I think both looks are absolutely stunning, obviously. And I honestly feel like what she's doing to me, when you said like the anime kind of portion, like what I'm getting is like Mortal Kombat 20. Here's some skins that you can buy for a character. You know what I mean? Like, like isn't there a character actually named Katana now that I'm thinking about it? And she has like the fans.
I think so. Yeah.
There you go. This is your Katana skins. There you go. There you go. You're going to buy those for like 400 Mortal Kombat bucks on the Drag Race collection inspired by Plastique Tiara. There you go.
Next up is Roxy with a very literal day to nighttime look, Beth.
I love the literal aspect of it. I love that she made this. I love this like 50s inspired look. The hair is just beautiful. It like actually helps to make the entire ensemble work. But I also don't think it fits her the best. Like I felt like she got a lot of positive critiques, which she should get. But this is somebody who I and so many other people put up on a drag pedestal, and I expect absolute perfection every time she hits the runway. So this is somebody that like I have a little bit higher of a standard than I would like Nina West on the runway. And I felt like her dress for the nighttime look, like the bust was a little too low or wasn't fitted as well. It doesn't seem to fit her. Like it fits perfectly from like the hips down, but from the hips to the bust, I feel like it's not giving what I wish it would.
I like this look. I thought I didn't notice the fit of it too much. This is one of those looks that like I wish that I could see up close because you can see a little bit of all the details in the embroidery on the nighttime look. So once again, Bob the Drag Queen, please keep putting out the idea for having a RuPaul's Drag Race museum, because I would definitely, even if it's just an exhibit in New York City for like 3 months, like. Okay. You have all these queens come in and bring in all of their best looks from the show. Like, oh my God, I would be in there in a hot minute. But yeah, I like the look. I like the literal interpretation of it, and I thought that it was a good job for someone who sews it.
Yeah, I didn't expect the coat to flip, so that was a very fun benefit to it. There's sort of some discourse going on about Roxy's overall look package, especially knowing her reputation, and that maybe they haven't been sort of like up to people's standards of what to expect. And I think that I agree with you, Beth, that it does feel a little bit of a different standard. So if like Nina came out in this, I'd be like, oh my gosh, this is great. I love this. And then for Roxy, it's like, okay, yeah, it's cute. Like you can do more though, right? So I think that's something that I'm just keeping in my mind, trying to not be too biased one way or another towards certain queens.
I think too that we have to remember that we don't know how much they were really compensated for this season, and unless you're someone like Plastique who like clearly spent $250,000 on her looks and probably has some of the money to do that thanks to social media, like some of these queens, even if they're really well paid drag queens and really, really well known, may not have had as many of the looks, and they're not making a lot of money coming on this one because it's for charity. So I always want to like throw that out there, but I can't help but like say to myself, the 2-in-1 look that she had in All Stars 2 was like much more dramatic in that like mariachi look. But I want to give her the absolute praise that she made this. And like you said, the lining being reversible, the details are there. I just wish that it fit just a little bit better.
Yeah. This was my favorite. It was Gottmix. Especially because there's something with her paint and the attitude that she comes out with the suit and then the turnaround. This is my favorite. I loved it. Amazing.
It was so cute.
Yeah, literally, if a mullet was an outfit, this was giving everything, and it was a good reveal because it was unexpected. You didn't really know what was going to happen. Like you knew the reveal was coming, but you just didn't know how it was going to come, and I did not expect that, and clearly the judges didn't either because they all were like, "Oh shit, there's an ass in my face." So I thought she did a pretty good job.
She's somebody who's just so smart. So they said, "Oh, day to night." So everybody changes outfits completely. She keeps the same outfit on the entire time, and all she has to do is turn around. Like that is so smart to do. And like you said, with her paint, like you're getting, I don't know. It's just because of her identity, because of her art and everything that you know about her. When you see this, it's such a good middle finger to like the patriarchy in this way of being like, you don't know who who you're working with. That, straight cis white guy who's in the office could absolutely love getting dressed up on the weekends. You know what I mean? Could absolutely love, the sissification, so to say. And I love that. I love that as a commentary, especially with all the libs on TikTok or whatever it is, like coming after her and her looks, and all these people who are like tuning in because they want to be mad at her. Like, she keeps pulling out stuff like this, and I'm like, yes, keep going. It's amazing.
I wonder how it felt to wear that, like have the warmth of the fabric on you in the front, and then just like cold, drafty air in the back. Like,
exactly.
I wonder how the pants stayed on in the front. You know what I mean?
I think it's all sewed together. Like, I feel like it's like.
But you see how it's like stitched. Open? It's not like it's sewn closed. Like, it's open on the sides. The front is, so it's got to be sewn on the front, which is just so unique. It's so cool.
Yeah, I think the way it's attached to the shoes as well. Also,
that makes sense.
But yeah, the belt. That's actually great. I didn't even notice that. That's awesome.
Damn.
Okay, so Georges, not sure what the first look was. Second look was gorgeous though. But to me, this is probably the worst of the week.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I think that sums it about up, Aman. Thank you.
I thought that her twirls for the reveal were gorgeous.
That's nice to say. That's very sweet of you. Okay, Angeria. Yeah, I didn't like that the top stayed the same. For both, I do agree. It was a lot of different prints. I love the prints for the headband and for the skirt. Not crazy about the one for the sort of upper torso area. I think if that had just been black, it would have been better.
They look like they both could be worn at the same event, right? Like in either the daytime or the evening. So that was like the one thing where I was like, I don't really get day to night from it. They seem a little bit too similar, and the clashing prints definitely is a little distracting. But I mean, it's a beautiful garment. I think she made this one as well. So again, like I always say, I'm never going to knock a queen for making something because I can't do shit. But I don't think it achieved the assignment.
I agree. But I don't know. I'm not as upset about the mismatching of patterns and such. I think that there's clear endings and beginnings of where the patterns, if they bled into each other and it was confusing for the shape of the outfit, I would understand it a little bit more. But we clearly know like where the bodice is and where the skirt is. I think I'm more distracted by the like faux fur sleeve. Yeah. But I do think that would work better if, like you're saying, Liana, it was a pure black bodice and you had that sleeve going on. But yeah, I agree with you too, Aman. This felt like she went from cocktail hour to like the actual event. Like, oh, you show up at, 7:00 for the cocktails. And then at 9:00 is when like, the actual gala begins or whatever.
Right.
So.
Vanjie is our last look to talk about with our Pretty Woman reference. I thought this was really fun. And I did not expect this from Vanjie either.
I definitely did not. This is, I think here's the thing. What I was talking about before, when you don't expect certain things from certain queens on the runway and then they do something and it makes you so excited. This is an example because Vanjie has not exactly been like a person for whom I connect with all of her looks on the runway. I connect with her personality and the energy and like the comedy and just like her natural God-given humor and charisma. This was like, it's fun to see somebody be so eloquent, right? If I saw like Nina West come out in something like this one day, I'd be like flabbergasted. And I was absolutely kind of like that with her. She looks so beautiful. And I don't know too many people who can make you prefer a version over Julia Roberts in any of like her movies in the 90s. And I prefer both of these looks now. I just gorgeous.
Yeah, I wanted to be a rich white woman when I saw them. I was feeling the fantasy. I really was. Yes. I loved it. And I've never even seen Pretty Woman. I know the gist of the story and everything, but I've never actually sat down and watched it. And now I want to sit down and watch it because of Vanjie. So I thought this was amazing.
That does it for the looks. We've talked about the main challenge. We have one last thing to talk about, at least for the nuts and bolts, which is the lip sync.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so the lip sync this week, Roxy, we've already sort of talked about this, but Roxy and Plastique are our two winners, so they're going to face off against each other. Super Freaky Girl, Nicki Minaj. Neither of them knew the words.
Nope.
So that was really awkward.
It's okay. I don't think Nicki does either.
Well, Ru definitely doesn't know the words.
I was happy that they both got the FREAK. Like, thank God they got that, because if they didn't get that, I'd be like, okay, what are we doing here?
Yeah, I mean, and the thing is also with Plastique, like, I think that at least Roxy hit it better. Maybe, right, would be, I think, the benefit, whereas Plastique was just out in front, not even bothering to try. So if we're going to talk about who's going to win, Roxy does end up winning here, and I have to imagine that that's part of the rationale for why Roxy ultimately wins this lip sync.
She strategically used that long wig to be like, I'm going to cover my mouth right now and uncover it again. And now I know the words, but now I don't. Like, it was so funny. Clocked that for sure.
Yeah, I think Roxy's look definitely went. It lent itself to the song. So I think visually too, it just seemed a little bit more cohesive than maybe Plastique's did.
I do think that Plastique performed better physically. Like I was more entertained watching her, but again, it's got to come down to knowing the words. That's the biggest part of a lip sync, and the look, like you said, Aman. Like, I am not mad at a Roxy win here.
I'm trying to find it. This is unrelated to the actual. Okay, this is from Paramount Plus. I forgot to grab a screenshot. Why the hell is Nina West dressed like an elf? Also, imagine Nina West doing a lip sync to Nicki Minaj dressed like an elf.
This is what I wanted to say. I'm so happy that she and Chanel actually didn't do well, because look at Chanel's outfit as well. Like, could you imagine? Actually, no, I actually wish they would have won now, because I want to see what those two would have done to Nicki Minaj with those outfits.
Yeah. I mean, is it a requirement that they all get into the lip sync outfits? Because if I were the two of them, I'd be like, I'm not changing. I'm not winning.
We need to be told who is in the top two before they can change. It's like, I don't know. But also it's giving me moments like this, so which makes me laugh. So maybe I really can't complain.
I know they should. I wish there was like a little bit more of a clip so there could be a good gif of them like turning and walking away. And I'm like, I'd use that all the time. When you've been clowning around so much, you get told to go home.
Yeah, exactly. When you've been playing dress up with your friends, you've been told to go home. Oh boy. Okay. All right. The blah blah blah. Roxy ends up winning, and this is really what I'm honestly maybe most excited to talk about, which is the drama. Okay, so we started this season being like, it's all stars. They're playing for charity. No one goes home. Are we going to have drama? And I feel like this episode really gave it to us. The combination of what we got at the beginning of the episode with Angeria being pissed about being cut, Chanel trying to like uncover the conversation, which gave us this face, which I'm living for, as well as I believe someone I grabbed this from the Reddit, made this gif of her trying to do the math of like who said who about blocking who and who was going to give the badge to who. And then, of course, in this episode, it just keeps getting better. Then at the end of this episode, of course, Roxy starts like, I don't know, getting emotional about who she's going to snip, block, whatever, decides to go in blind, snips Angie again, who looks pissed. Ru calls out that Angeria looks pissed. Roxy then is like, I can't do it to her. I can't do it to her. She sobs, decides to cut Gottmik, and then Gottmik has to comfort Roxy. Aman, where do we even start with all this?
Wait, before that, she says, I don't need to know where anybody is. I just need to know where Nina is.
Yes,
she does this whole rigmarole with Nina and doesn't even end up cutting her.
Well, I think that was supposed to be a joke, right? Because she had given her a badge. So it was like, oh, haha. But then does the whole like turning your back thing, and then just what? And I like, how do you not know Angeria is there? There's only 7 of them.
You saw them come back on.
Yeah.
I mean, well, she did do this, so maybe she didn't see exactly where. Maybe she had an idea of who was next to her, but she didn't know where everybody else was. watching Angie think that she was going to get snipped again was crazy. And I was expecting that was going to be it. I was kind of shocked that RuPaul allowed her to switch, because it kind of feels like one of those things, like once you make the decision, it's over. But RuPaul was like, okay, you can go ahead, try it again. But at that point, I was just like, just snip Gottmik. She has all the damn badges. Just do it. Just do it. Like, it's gonna be okay. But I don't know. I guess maybe these conversations that they're having, maybe we're not seeing just how heavy they become at the beginning of each episode. But she seemed very, very affected by this, and I was kind of surprised. I didn't know that it was weighing on her heart that much.
She almost didn't want to win that lip sync. It's like, as soon as he said Roxy, she was like, oh no. Like, as soon as she did, and it was like, made me wonder if she was trying to throw the lip sync, and that's why she wasn't doing as many of the words and such. But I think from the premiere from next week's episode, it doesn't sound like the girls are buying it, like that she was that emotional over it. How do you guys feel? Because I kind of feel like it was sincere, but
it looked sincere to me. It looked very like, oh my God, I don't want to do this anymore. Like, and it's not the first time that we've seen the queens like get like this on All Stars. Like, they get, they're close with everybody and they know these people, they work with these people, and the fans can be very vicious. So I don't doubt that it was real at all. I think that she was just over it at that point. But girl, it's a game. Like, Gottmik is going to be okay.
Right. You know what you signed up for too. It's I think it's tough for Roxy because she also comes in with a preconceived notion about her being the bitch, right? And so then when you see her behaving in this way that feels counter to what her persona might be perceived to be, then I think you naturally start to think, you're putting it on, you're faking it, you're trying to make us feel a certain way. And she came in with also such a strong reputation, maybe didn't do as hot the first couple weeks, but now has 2 badges. So she is really a threat in the competition. So girl, why are you crying? We know.
I just felt like mathematically there were only 2 choices, which were Vanjie and Gottmik, because Nina gave you a badge. You have 2 badges because of Nina. Why would you cut her? Also, sorry, I love Nina, but we just had a comedy challenge and all this. Like, what's going to be next week? Well, now we know there is going to be a comedy challenge. So whatever, Beth, shut up. But I also
Chanel has 0, so it's not her. Like, you can kind of go through, as you said.
So Chanel's 0, and then Angie has just been cut multiple times, which is why I thought it was so funny, because she stopped at that end of the stage where clearly they were standing in the order that they were for like the judging, which was Nina, Chanel, Angie, and like Plastique would have been in there somewhere, right? But she like was in the backstage, obviously. But I just mean like, I don't know. There's aspects of this that I truly think we can't comprehend because we're not the ones in front of the camera with the weight of the world on our shoulders, reputation on our shoulders, whole 9 yards. And I'm sure that things get jumbled because, I mean, we were playing a Brant Steele the other day, and I was even trying, like, after working really hard to come up with jokes, and I was like, I can't do this, and I forgot what someone said, and, oh, yeah, my name is Augusta Wynn, come up with another Wynn thing. I don't know. Like, I understand. Same. I can understand how she could forget, but I'm also like, girl, like, if you're going to forget and you don't want to cut Angie, then maybe don't turn around.
If she did it on purpose, she gave us great TV. So I cannot be mad at all. Either way, genuine or fake,
I'm not mad about it happening.
Great TV. But yeah, as Aman said, Angie's face just face crack.
Yeah, but also Plastique was like half laying on the ground in the back, being like, like leaned over. Like I was like, oh my God, people were gagged. And I think that Roxy would have been looking at Plastique and seeing Plastique's face, and I think that's how she knew, like, I fucked up. How did I fuck up?
I like the idea of turning around and then Plastique goes like, no, yes. Like that person. That would have been hilarious.
That's what I would have done. I would have Plastique, if you wanted a little bit more camera time, that's what you should have done.
Right. We're here to make drama. Well, that does it for this week. Next week, we do have a comedy challenge. It's going to be the roast challenge, specifically a political convention theme. So I assume some type of political jokes we'll get, which should be interesting. I'm curious to see what happens, especially given this cast. But that will be next week for us. Anything else that either of you would like to say about this week, next week, drag in general, life?
I have the episode playing in the background. I just got to let the music play part, and Roxy is still so like everyone else is like dancing, and Godmik is like scissoring what's her face with the scissors, and Roxy's just like bye. I'm like, oh my god, girl, so get over it.
Especially after she made such a big deal of Injuria swerving her with the let the music play at the end of the last episode. It's kind of just like bye. Yeah. I won this episode and $10,000 for my charity, but I must go backstage and cry now. I live. Good for her.
So funny. All right. Is there okay? Yes. Well, yeah, that's it. I think we're done. I think we did it. GG's us. Aman, is there anything you want to plug, social media or otherwise?
No, you can follow me everywhere at Aman Adwin. I will be back on the Purple Pants podcast doing some casual tea with Bryce this week. I think it comes out on Tuesday, I believe. And yeah, I'm just still here kicking it with the two of you, waiting for Big Brother 26. We're super excited. Sad about the news about Big Brother Canada, but what did we expect? I mean, we knew that shit was going to happen. So it is what it is. But that's it for me.
Beth, what about you?
You can follow me everywhere at AugustaWind11 on all my social media channels. And like we plugged earlier, go back and watch that wonderful Brant Steele. Everyone was amazing and funny. And I hope that we do something like that again.
And you can follow me on Twitter at Liana RHAP, also holding down the Drag Race for which, speaking of Drag Race, if you want to help us, you can leave your star ratings and reviews on iTunes, robhasawebsite.com/Drag Race. Also, thank you to the whole RHAP team for all of their help behind the scenes. Oh, yes. And one last plug for the Pride Has Spoken. So I think buffs also are available. Grace said that they met the minimum pre-order, so that those will be available if you're interested in purchasing those, because it's what fucking Pride. Happy Pride, by the way.
Happy Pride.
So go celebrate in your own way. If you want, the merch is out there. Definitely go and check that out. So that does it for us, and we'll talk to y'all soon. Bye.